Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for leaving my sister's wedding early because she kept my husband out of pictures? I am 31 years old man and my sister and 34 female got married on Saturday. My husband of 7 years, Mark, 32 male, was there with me and up until one point was an amazing evening. After the ceremony, and wanted a picture with all of our siblings, there's 5 of us, and their respective partners, so we started lining up. When and saw that my husband was standing next to me, she shook her head and said something about him ruining the aesthetic. Apparently, her plan was to put one man and one woman next to each other alternately. My youngest sister, 18 female, who doesn't have a partner and was standing on the very side, offered to stand between the two of us so we could be close and Anne's wish would still be respected. I thought that was a great solution, but Anne disagreed and told Mark to get out of the picture. He's quite introverted and tries to avoid confrontation under all circumstances, so he simply complied and told me not to get angry, but it was obvious that he was hurt and disappointed by being left out. Obviously, it didn't stop me from getting angry and I walked away with him. I can understand that Anne wants her wedding pictures to look exactly how she imagined them, but I think that the idea my younger sister proposed was very reasonable. I congratulated Anne and her husband one last time, but then I said my goodbyes. When I was asked why we were leaving early, especially before taking the pictures, I said that I didn't feel like our presence was wanted. We left before dinner was served and I took Mark out to his favorite restaurant to cheer him up a little. Anne has texted me since saying that I was being overdramatic and making a fuss over nothing. Our parents have tried to remain neutral, but except for my youngest sister, the rest of the family supports Anne and thinks that leaving early was going too far and that I should have sucked it up instead of ruining her big day. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister-in-law out for making my drunk husband feel like crap? My sister-in-law, her husband and her kid, 14, are staying with me and my husband for the next week because there's a family funeral and all hotels were booked out for the Bluegrass Fest and Kane Brown concert. We have a big farmhouse so it's not big deal, but sister-in-law is very opinionated. My sister-in-law and my husband have different fathers. Her dad died from liver failure 10 years ago and his death date just passed by not too long ago. He was a massive alcoholic and due to this, my sister-in-law turns into a B-word whenever she sees anyone drinking, especially people in her family. Well, my husband, who isn't a big drinker, went out with friends last night as kind of a last hurrah because we will be welcoming our first daughter into this world in about a month and he just wanted to celebrate his becoming of a dad. I encouraged him to go. I arranged for his Uber back home and he came in around 11 p.m. last night. He was very drunk. He walked in the door singing "Let's Stay Together" by Al Green, dancing, spinning me around the living room floor in some very sloppy waltz and laughing the whole time as he was tripping all over himself. Now, my dad is an alcoholic too. So I get it, but honestly, I was having an effing blast with my drunk husband. Sister-in-law comes into the room and just starts laying into my husband about him drinking. Screaming about how he was going to turn out just like dad, etc., etc. At this point my husband's mood is dead. He's crying. I lost it. I told her how can he turn out like a POS when that POS isn't his father? Get out of my house right now and don't ever come back. She immediately went quiet and said she couldn't take her daughter out at this time of night and that no hotels had vacancy and my husband knew better than to drink around her and I told her that's not my problem. Leave. The whole family is pissed at me and my husband right now for both in drinking in front of sister-in-law and me kicking them out at midnight. Am I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for screaming at my husband and his sister to get out of my kitchen? My husband's sister, 38, lives with us and our kids. I'm well beyond fed up with her being here because of food issues. That's the only reason. So, basically, every single time I make food his sister will come in and doctor up the food I'm making to her liking. Like I made steak and shrimp the other day, like Applebee's, and she waited until I left the room to put a full stick of butter in my shrimp that was already done and when I came back in, she goes, "I'm pretty sure that's the taste you were looking for," and completely ruined it. It was trash. Or whenever I make spaghetti she will start dumping sugar into the sauce, to a point of sweet spaghetti that me and my kids outright refuse to touch because it's nasty. Every single time that she can get away with it, she's doing something to the food. Anyways, my husband has started doing the same thing. I went to make homemade mac last night and cheeseburgers. I went to the basement to the chest freezer to grab the veggies I needed, and when I came back upstairs, my husband was putting canned chicken into the mac and cheese. He knows the kids absolutely hate the taste of that, and his sister is pushing blocks of blue cheese into the partially cooked burgers. I asked what the F they thought they were doing, because I've told them so many times to stop effing with the food, and neither of them had any good excuse other than we were just helping. I flipped out and told them to get the F out of my kitchen. Both of them told me I was overreacting, etc., etc. The thing is, I've openly asked my sister-in-law to cook several times and she won't. But she won't stop effing with the food I'm making. My husband cooks often and I don't care if he screws with food he makes, but it royally annoys me when my cooking is messed with and he knows that. Am I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for denying an older woman shelter from a storm? I, 23 female, am an avid hiker in Australia. Last week I encountered a middle-aged woman, around 50 years old, as I was coming off a trail. She was walking in my direction as I came out of the bush. It was strange to see her. The sun was almost down and the weather was starting to turn. Also, this was an intermediate collection of trails at best, difficult even for me at worst. And she didn't look super athletic. Point is, my weird radar was going off already. She walked up to me and stopped, standing too close for my comfort, gestured toward the clearing where my car was parked, and asked whether it was my car. No greeting or anything. When I looked over, something made me uncomfortable. There were no cars other than mine in sight. The trail I was on isn't crazy far from civilization, but it's not a walk away, one of those highway rest stops that's there for the trail and a few parking spots. No way she could have got there without driving. I let her know that, yes, it was my car. To which she responded something like, "Perfect, there's a storm coming, I can't be caught in it, and I need to get home." She was very matter of fact. It seemed like she had already decided what would happen. Without waiting for my response, she started striding for my car. I am glad I always lock my doors, because she would have hopped right in the passenger seat had the door opened. As she was walking over to it, I went after her, trying to explain that I wasn't sure it was a good idea for her to hitch a ride, asking why she was out here in the first place. I was talking to a brick wall until she realized the car was locked, at which point she turned around with this look of anger and frustration on her face. She starts ranting the same stuff as before. "I need to get home, a storm is coming, I cannot be caught in it, why don't you get it?" I was very confused at this point, and a little scared, as this woman was now a barrier between me and my vehicle. I told her something like, "I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable with having a stranger in my car." She stared me down for a few seconds, I guess trying to gauge her chances at asking again. And just like that, the anger drops from her face and she's silent. I was really uncomfortable. I asked if I could call someone, if there was another way to help. She starts walking towards me, scary, but then right past me. I'm still asking her questions, then just saying things like hello and excuse me. No response. She walked to the other end of the rest stop and maintained eye contact with me as she sat down on a log, then just stared at nothing. I didn't follow her. I got into my car really shaken up and drove away. As soon as I was back in cell range, I called fire and rescue. They said they would send someone out. I was scared for my safety in the moment, but she was just some woman alone in the middle of nowhere. Am I the a-hole refusing this strange woman a ride and shelter in my car? Next story. Am I the a-hole for being pissed there was no alcohol at a wedding? I am 35 years old man and my best friend 34 years old man got married last week. He drinks alcohol and our friend group will meet up at breweries a few times a month to hang out. His fiancée, now wife, does not drink. It's never been a part of her life. My wife and I got a hotel room by the reception space and Ubered to the wedding. The ceremony occurs, we go to what's supposed to be cocktail hour and there was just soda and water. No alcohol. This was not something we knew about ahead of time. There was a palpable buzz among our friend group at the lack of booze. A lot of us had spent money on a hotel room and Ubering, anticipating drinking. I'm kind of pissed. Bride and groom come to cocktail hour, everyone cheers, and when the bride and groom come mingle with us, I ask where is the booze? His new wife chimes in saying her family does not drink and they were paying for the wedding, thus no alcohol. I tell them we should know that ahead of time. I say I wasted money on a hotel room and Ubering. I would have just driven if I'd known, or maybe not even had come. The bride does not take my commentary well and implies I might have a drinking problem. I don't, I only drink with my friends. The groom says I don't need to be such an a-hole. I reiterate that I spent a bunch of money on something I didn't need, we all did. The bride's pissed at me and asks me to leave. My wife and I leave, but it's clear I touched a nerve. In our group chat, friends were mixed on me saying something. My wife said I wasn't wrong, but my timing was wrong. So was I the a-hole? Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling someone I'm not friendly when their dog came up to me? Went to a brewery restaurant with my wife. Our name was called, and to get to our table indoors, we had to cut through the patio. We got stopped for a few moments behind a table leaving and saying goodbye. In those moments, a lab-type dog gets up and starts sniffing my ankles. I look at the owners and say what the hell? And point at the dog. They just say the classic line of "Oh, don't worry, he's friendly." I admit I was a touch rude. I just say, "I'm not friendly." They pull the dog back under the table. They start saying if you aren't friendly you shouldn't be coming to a dog-friendly restaurant. I tell them just because the place is dog-friendly doesn't mean that it's okay for your dog to come up to me. I don't want it in my effing space. They seem baffled that someone didn't like their dog. He called me an a-hole and told me to find somewhere else to walk. I say F off as we head to our table. My wife was like, "You're right, but could have been friendlier." Was I the a-hole? I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.